Welcome to Books and Things with Tom. We just completed 8 weeks of heroin addiction. Not that I'm on heroin addiction, but we talked about heroin addiction in hopes that we can understand what we are up against with this epidemic. And there's too many young people that are passing away because of heroin, and it's not going to get any better unless we can find a way to stop it, stop the people from doing it, and I don't know, we maybe be a little more informative as to how you can find out if your children are doing it or whoever. So this week I thought we'd try something a little different. Medical marijuana. And I like a little controversy every once in a while. And I think we're going to try to discuss medical and recreational marijuana and see if it's all as good as it's supposed to be and if it's all as bad as it's supposed to be. My guest is Dr. Alicia Farrel, and she is a cognitive psychologist. And that's a new word to me, so welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, because I really don't know that much about drugs, or marijuana, or anything. And I thought that it would be a good idea to, what do you do, first of all, so we can get the connection in here?
Yeah, so I'm a cognitive psychologist. I have a private practice in Old Saybrook, where I see families and couples and individuals and children for a variety of reasons that include substance abuse, anxiety, depression, transitional issues in life, marriage issues, those types of things. Yeah. And then I speak in the state of Connecticut and nationally on a host of topics related to parenting, to brain development and marijuana use, and brain development and technology use in the teen years, and a whole bunch of different things. So.
Wow. Unfortunately, a lot of things that you do and people like yourself that are out there, nobody knows it.
Yeah.
They look for somebody and have no idea. I didn't know. And like we were discussing, I could have used you 20 years ago. But we just, how do we get people to understand and know that somebody is out there to help them?
Well, I'll tell you, since we're talking about marijuana today, one of the things that I find particularly frustrating when I'm doing talks on marijuana and brain development in the teenage years around the state of Connecticut, very difficult to get parents to come out and be informed. And it's concerning. Yeah, it's concerning to me because I end up with these kids in my practice. And once your child has a dependence or an addiction to a drug, it changes their life forever. And it complicates everything, and it's very, very painful in the family dynamic. So, unfortunately, it's difficult to get people to come out and pay attention.
And I think that's the same thing with heroin. Jim Spellman was on. He said a lady came up to him and said that her daughter was watching one of the programs, and she said to the mother that you wouldn't be interested, and the mother said, I am very interested. And they started a dialogue between the two.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I don't know what's happening now, but at least there's a talk going on.
Yes.
Understand. And you're right, people.
Well, legitimately, it's very difficult to talk about these topics.
Yeah.
They're very controversial. Marijuana is an extremely complicated topic, politically, socially, culturally, within a family dynamic with teenagers. It's difficult, and it helps to come out and hear somebody, a professional, help you understand how to talk about it and have the facts to talk about it. So.
Now, what's the difference between medical and recreational? There is no difference, is there?
Yeah, so this is such a misconception on everybody's part. I really wish we wouldn't call marijuana medical marijuana, because there really is no such thing. The FDA we have a process in this country for deeming something a drug, and marijuana has not been legalized at a federal level as a drug. So the FDA has not approved it that way. So marijuana is not a medicine, although we're using it as a medicine. And this is where it gets so complicated.
Yeah.
One of the many reasons that marijuana has not been legalized as a drug is that we haven't been able to research it. And the reason we haven't been able to research it is because back in the 1970s, the federal government came up with a schedule of drugs, 1 to 5, 1 being the most dangerous of drugs, 5 being the least dangerous of drugs. And they split drugs up into these schedules. And marijuana was put into the Schedule 1 category,
Really?
with heroin,
Wow.
with peyote, with LSD, and so you couldn't study it. And there was only, and still only, one location in the United States, the University of Mississippi, that research was allowed on marijuana. So we don't have a lot of scientific data to suggest that marijuana can be beneficially used as a medicine. Now, having said that, we do know that there is most likely some strong medicinal properties to the cannabinoids that are in marijuana. So THC, CBD in particular, those two hold the most promise. And so that's where things get complicated, because if we didn't put the cart before the horse, and if we had been able to study cannabis as a possible medicine, we would know better what the benefits are.
So because it's illegal, you can't study it.
You can't. It's illegal to study it.
Now, I had read something about the effects of marijuana. Now, it's supposed to be good for the health. I don't know. I don't know if that's been proven. And one of the things, I know there was a thing I was going to say, is that I read somewhere that one of the problems is that we're studying marijuana to see how bad it is, instead of how good it can be. And I wonder if that's true, that if you could be throwing the whole thing out and saying, well, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, so the National Academy of Sciences in this January of 2017, they did a thorough evaluation of 10,000 different studies that have been done over the years with marijuana to determine what do we absolutely know to be the case about the medicinal properties or the dangers of recreational use of marijuana. And what they found was that there was plenty of evidence to suggest that the use of marijuana, the CBD and THC in particular, are beneficial for individuals who have chronic pain, who have chronic spasticity related to MS, for example, who have a wasting syndrome where, because of cancer, they have a difficult time eating, they have nausea, that kind of thing. With the exception of those 3 things, there wasn't a lot of evidence to suggest that the use of marijuana, for example, for Parkinson's, for PTSD, for Crohn's disease, for all these other things that actually the state of Connecticut has now legalized medical marijuana for, there isn't a lot of scientific evidence to indicate the benefits.
Now, if I'm driving down the street and I got an ounce in my car and I get stopped, it's medical marijuana, I say.
Okay, so here's the issue. You have to have a registration card in order to have medical marijuana, in order to use medical marijuana. So the way that process works in the state of Connecticut, and it's different in every state, because it's illegal at the federal level, the states are making all the decisions themselves. In Connecticut, I have to say that Connecticut does one of the better jobs in the country with all of this. So in Connecticut, what you have to do to be certified as a user of medical marijuana, you have to go see your physician, and the physician has to be treating you for an illness, a disease that has been deemed in the state of Connecticut to be worthy of the use of medical marijuana.
Okay.
So let me just read to you what those are. Cancer, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, Parkinson's, MS, intractable spasticity, epilepsy, wasting syndrome, Crohn's disease, and PTSD. So if you have been diagnosed with any of those diseases, then what the physician has to do is go online and actually certify you through the Department of Consumer Protection Once they have agreed to certify you through this physician, then you have to go onto their website and fill out paperwork, and then they decide if you can be certified, and you get a card that allows you to use medical marijuana.
That's interesting. See, nobody ever said anything like that. And I'm just figuring you get a headache, well, get more marijuana. And, that's interesting. It's really cutting it back, so it's just not everybody's going to get it.
Absolutely. And the pharmacies cannot legally dispense medical marijuana. So only licensed pharmacists can dispense medical marijuana. So you can't just go to a pharmacy with your certificate, your registration card, and pick up your marijuana. You actually have to get it from a licensed pharmacist.
And I assume there's a lot of them in Connecticut.
So they limit the number of individuals who are dispensing and producing. So the dispensers, we can't have any less than 3 dispensers in the state and no more than 10 dispensers in the state.
Wow. It sounds like they got it under control, but like everything else, it goes wacky. And so now I'm just, is marijuana, recreational marijuana legal?
So not in the state of Connecticut. So there are 8 states in the District of Columbia who have legalized recreational marijuana. 29 states in this country have legalized medicinal marijuana. So in the state of Connecticut, we have not yet legalized it, but it is being considered to be legalized here in Connecticut.
Yeah, because people, I have COPD, and they said, well, you got to try marijuana because it'll help. And I'm not having that much of a problem, so I haven't tried it anyway. But that's not on the list.
No, it's not.
So if I have it, I can't get it medically.
I mean, you should not be able to get it in the state of Connecticut legally. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Now, does this just help the pain, or does it actually help the cure?
No, we don't see it curing anything. We see it as as a medicine that, like you would take an opioid for pain.
Oh, okay.
And the argument is, and I understand the argument, it's a strong argument. You can die from opioids.
Yeah.
You can become terribly addicted to opioids, and we know there's an opioid epidemic, and in Connecticut it is rampant. We're having people die every day in the state of Connecticut and around the country.
932 last year.
It's just horrible. So wouldn't it be wonderful if indeed marijuana could be a replacement for opioids, because you can't die from the use of marijuana. The problem is that we don't know enough about the use of marijuana and its long-term effects, the use of marijuana and how it interacts with other drugs, the use of marijuana and how it interacts with the aging body, the aging system. So we have put the cart before the horse for obvious reasons related to the fact that people are finding benefits in the use of marijuana. And so we're pushing the legalization of the drug at a state level to try to help individuals who need to use the drug. The problem is that we haven't done our due diligence. So now we're creating a very complicated situation we are really engaged in a cultural experiment in this country that could go terribly wrong.
Yeah, I keep thinking potheads and heroin, and we're in trouble. We're really in trouble.
I'll tell you this. Here's my concern on multiple levels. First of all, the recreational marijuana, medical and recreational marijuana, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Recreational marijuana, both are very different from the marijuana that was smoked back in the 1970s. The THC level, which is the cannabinoid that has the psychoactive ingredient that gets you high, about 1 to 3% back in the 1970s. Now, the marijuana has anywhere between 15 to 30% THC. And if there is a concentrated form of cannabis that's called dabs, the kids call it dabs, 80 to 90% THC. So this is a different drug,
Yeah.
and people don't understand that. They think when we talk about weed and we talk about pot, they think that we're talking about the marijuana of the 70s, and we're not. We're talking about an addictive substance now because of the high levels of THC. We are also talking about a drug that may indeed interact with the physical maturation of the brain, and that is of great concern to me.
And you said a lot of times people will go from marijuana to heroin.
Yeah, so marijuana is also, and I know, some of the people that are listening to this are going to say, oh, she's, full of it. First of all, it's not addictive. Second of all, it's not a gateway drug. I wish we would stop having that argument because it is indeed both. And the way it becomes a gateway drug is that marijuana is particularly expensive now. There's a lot of science that goes into the production of the marijuana in order to get the THC levels up and control the levels. In fact, the higher the THC level, the more you're going to pay for the marijuana, believe it or not. So the way it ends up being a gateway drug is kids experiment, right? So they start having a few drinks and then they think, oh, try some of this pot, see how this is. Well, this is pretty good. I kind of like this, know? And then they can't afford it anymore. So what do they start to do? They start to find pills. They start to find opioids, for example. And they can get those in their parents' medicine cabinet. They can, they're easy to come by. Yeah. And those become too expensive. So where do they end up going from there? They go to heroin because heroin is $5 a bag. Heroin's easy. You can find it, and it's inexpensive.
Yeah, it's going to get cheaper.
And exactly, and it's incredibly dangerous these days because it's incredibly pure. Now we've got fentanyl, which is, it's killing people left and right. So these kids, unwittingly, they don't intend to become addicts. Yeah. They're experimenting. And not every child who experiments is going to become addicted to something. But look, if you're a parent, do you want to take that chance? Do you want to have and so you can't be you can't be Oz, you can't control everything. But you can do a much better job as a parent to monitor your children, to talk to your children, to establish your values with them so they understand that this is not acceptable.
It's such a shame. We, as kids, we didn't have time to do drugs.
Yeah.
We could play and do this, do that. We weren't sitting at home bored doing the TV, or we didn't have a TV. But today's kids, they're growing up so fast.
Yeah.
And they're looking for immediate excitement. Everything they do has got to be immediate, and I'm sure the drugs help that right along.
You know what else is contributing to this? And you haven't really seen a lot of this connection yet in the press, but you're going to start to see it, is technology use. Technology use is contributing to these children's use of illicit substances because, for example, boys love to smoke pot and play video games. It's like the piece de resistance, that's like the thing. Yeah, it's great. So you're going to, and technology itself, I don't know if you saw the 60 Minutes piece a couple weeks ago, but the apps that are being developed, they're actually consulting with neuropsychologists, the developers, in order to program these apps to encourage people to behave in certain ways, to encourage dependence.
Yes, I did see that.
So, it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on.
Because you don't know what you're looking at something and all of a sudden subliminal, you just did something. So you didn't even know I did it.
Yeah.
And because that's what they do. And that's why subliminal advertising was illegal.
Right.
Because you'd see something quick and all of a sudden registered.
Well, there was plenty of that going on when cigarettes came
60s and 70s,
out.
Yes.
Yep.
And so now they're doing it in cell phones.
In fact, I don't know if you remember the Weekly Reader. Do you remember that in elementary school there was this Weekly Reader that would come out? Yeah. Well, at one point, the Weekly Reader was owned by a cigarette company.
Oh, really?
And they were putting subliminal messages in the Weekly Reader to try to get the kids to form opinions to normalize cigarette use so that it would be just okay with them. So,
They tried everything.
We, and so, to the people that are listening to this, they may be thinking, oh my God, these people are just paranoid, like they're off their rocker.
Yeah.
And I want to reinforce with these individuals that one of the things that I commit myself to is educating the community based on the facts.
Yeah.
Just the facts. So what you're hearing today is just the facts. You can form any opinion that you're comfortable with, but form it based on the facts. And let's start using some common sense.
The real facts. We're not talking fake facts.
We're not talking fake news.
Facts.
We're talking the real facts. So,
Well, I think that's, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so let's start using our common sense and form our opinions based on the facts. So we don't have to necessarily wait for 10 years of scientific research to tell us that smoking marijuana, today's marijuana in your teen years, is potentially a bad thing to do. We don't have to wait 10 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
We can make that decision now with what we know.
And the people that are out there smoking pot, and you know who you are, are going to argue with you, there's nothing wrong with pot, and I'm not addicted.
Well, there was actually a survey out of Marist College that just came out yesterday, and the survey indicated that 55 million people in this country have smoked marijuana. 55. So it's normal. We don't see it, but it is definitely a normal, cultural, accepted behavior.
Yeah, it is. And you don't know who's smoking, and I go to different places. People go outside, they come back in, and they're high, and you go, I wonder what they were doing. And that's too bad. But and it doesn't bother me because I don't ride with them anymore. And but it's good to get out here and let the people know the different aspects of marijuana and how safe is it.
So marijuana is not evil. It's not evil.
Yeah.
And it's probably relatively safe to use in adulthood as I'm going to call it a medicine, to actually treat something that we've found it helps, like chronic pain. Is it safe for teenagers to use? I would suggest to you that's a whole different issue, and no, it isn't. We're seeing changes in brain development. We're seeing drops in IQ, 6 to 8 point drops in IQ related to use. Of course, if you have 145 IQ, who cares? You're normal then. Yeah. But most of us are average, and you take 8 points off your IQ and you're average, and you've got issues, and it's going to influence the quality of your life. So that's where it gets complicated. We're going to have to treat this issue of cannabis in our culture differently. Yeah. We're going to have to treat it from a medicinal perspective differently than we're treating it from a recreational perspective. Mm-hmm. But from a business perspective, those two things are so intimately entwined right now in our country. So what's happening is we're legalizing medicinal marijuana, which is leading to the legalization of recreational marijuana because of money. Yeah. Because it's going to produce a lot of tax dollars for our state and other states.
And they're not going to make it legal just because it's a good thing. They're going to make it legal because it's taxes.
Right.
And I think that's what irritates me is that we do so many things for tax money, and it's just half the stuff shouldn't be done.
And we're not learning. We went through this with cigarettes. If you go back and you study what happened with cigarettes, you'll find that we're on the same trajectory with marijuana that we were with cigarettes.
Yes.
And then we had to spend an enormous amount of money in this country to educate our people that you shouldn't be smoking.
We're supposed to. We taxed the cigarette companies some $50-100 million. And it was going out to the states so the states could spend that money on advertising against smoking. I think Connecticut still got theirs in the bank. And yeah, there was been a lot of things about that they haven't lived up to what they were supposed to do with that money.
Well, they promised that a lot of it was going to go into education.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the dialogue today about the tax dollars coming out of the sale of marijuana, they're saying the same thing. They're saying that those dollars are going to go to improving the education system at a state level. And and I don't have a crystal ball, but I would suggest to you that that is not going to happen.
Well, it's just like all the casino money was going to go into education.
Yeah.
And spread out through the town so they wouldn't have to spend so much money. So we know tax money, where that's going to go, somebody's pocket or some other thing. But it's a serious problem, I think, in both marijuana and heroin. We've done, like I said, eight weeks on heroin. And if anybody out there has any questions, drop me a line. SantosTom@Comcast.net, or you can get a hold of Alicia at on the board. Thank you. And she'd be happy to talk to you, or if somebody wants the seminar.
Oh, absolutely.
Be happy to offer me.
I'll tell you what I'd love to do, and I'm trying to get this started in Old Saybrook, because it's so hard to get parents to come out.
Yeah.
I want to come to them. So if you have in your community, your neighborhood, you have a group of parents that want me to come in and give you the facts, talk to the kids, answer questions, we can argue about it, we can have dialogue about it. I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled to do that.
That sounds like a good program.
Let's go, because they're not coming out, so I'm going to go in. I'm tired of waiting for them.
Contact either one of us and we'll see what we can do for you. And I think that's a great idea. But it's just, I don't know if marijuana is good or not. I guess it is good in certain instances. And if we make legal marijuana recreational, I just have vision of everybody having potheads driving down the street. And it's bad enough they're drunk.
Yeah.
And they, so... I think we got about 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
And so, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Let me just take a second to.
We have 2 minutes.
So I'd just like to say, in terms of addiction, the statistics indicate that if you start smoking marijuana prior to the age of 18, 1 in 6 of those individuals will become dependent on marijuana.
Wow.
And in adulthood, 1 in 9 will become dependent on marijuana.
Wow.
And one of the reasons we know it's addictive, for those of you who are saying, sitting at home saying, no, it's not, is that people go through withdrawals. So if you're a regular marijuana user, you will go through withdrawals. Yeah. There's also a syndrome associated with frequent marijuana use. And one of the things that you might look for in your teens if they're smoking regularly is, are they taking a lot of showers? Because there's actually, they will start to throw up. They have stomach issues associated with smoking. And one of the ways that they soothe themselves is to shower.
See, I know about addiction because I'm a smoker.
Yeah, which is a very strong, one of the stronger addictions.
I want to thank everybody for watching. And as usual, it's been very enlightening, and I thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Because it's a great subject, and anytime you want to come back, let me know.
Okay, great.
To everybody, it's almost spring.
Nearly.
It's a little chilly out there, but it's still spring. Come up with a good book. Even though it's not that cold at night, you should be reading. I'll see you next time. Thank you.